Mr. Chairman, I've started the recording. I've checked the box. If you'd like, I'll give the instructions.
That would be great, Mr. Nease. Thank you.
Okay. Tonight is another virtual meeting of the Board of Supervisors. As we've been doing for almost the past year now, we've been taking comment one of four ways. You can do public comment by dropping off public comment in the blue drop box that's at the entrance to the township building. I have checked the box before the meeting and there is nothing in the box at this time. You can also give public comment by raising your hand in the Zoom meeting. There's a ability to do that at the bottom of most screens, although in some computers it's at the top. You can raise your hand. You can also do so by phone, and we will recognize you. If you, for some reason, are unable to raise your hand, or you just would want to make public comment without actually having to state the public comment during the meeting, you could send your comments to publiccomment@newtowntownship.org. Again, that's publiccomment@newtowntownship.org. If you are on the phone and having trouble and you wish to get in and make a comment verbally or orally, you can do the same thing. Send me a note at publiccomment@newtowntownship.org, and just make sure you give your phone number, your name, and your address so that we can bring you over and announce that you're the person that you would like to make public comment. I believe that's the instructions, and I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Nease. Just to note that the board was in executive session prior to this meeting to discuss two potential legal matters and one contract matter. That being the case, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Mr. Nease, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Naun.
Present.
Mr. Partridge.
Here.
Ms. Roberts-Lightcap.
Here.
Mr. Russo.
Here.
Mr. Altieri.
Here.
Your engineer. And I don't see the solicitor. Your engineer and your manager are here. I believe your solicitor was coming in, but I don't see him.
You'll reach out to him and while we're here and make sure he joins us.
I will make sure that happens, please. Yes.
Okay, awesome. All right. Oh, no, he's showing on.
Oh, he is. I'm sorry. That was
He's
my
at the
fault.
bottom of the list there. He's showing on.
Yep.
He's here.
Okay.
Hey,
Everyone's here.
Present.
Thank you, Mr. Catania. All right, for tonight's moment of silence, please let's keep in our thoughts and our prayers all of our public works employees, those out fighting snow, and all the folks like that. Just not our public works, but PennDOT folks. Anybody out on the road. We've had something that we haven't had in a few years, snow, and they're spending a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of long hours keeping our roads clear. I think they're doing an excellent job. So can be a dangerous job, and we want to make sure that we keep them in our thoughts and our prayers. So please bow your head and let's remember them. Okay, we have before us this evening's agenda. I'll consider a motion to approve the agenda as written or consideration of any changes, additions, deletions.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor Roberts-Lightcap to approve this evening's agenda as written. Any further questions or discussions from members of the board on the agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next on the agenda is public comment for agenda items only. Again, this is public comment for items that are on this evening's agenda. I know before the meeting, I got word that we did receive two written comments, both of them involving the Greer Park and their endorsement or acceptance or expressing their support, I'll say, for the accessibility components of the park and the ability for people to handicapped folks and folks of that nature to be able to access the park. I don't think we need to read those. We're not taking any action on the plan tonight, although we will be having a presentation, of course. But I just want to acknowledge that we did receive 2 written comments from folks expressing support for the accessibility aspects of our Greer Park Master Plan. I see no other hands raised. Mr. Neese, do you have any other
Mr. Chairman,
comments?
should we just say the who the public comments from and their
Yeah,
address?
yeah, give me a second here. Let me see if I can find it. Unless somebody has it handy.
And while you look that up, I will just, if I can, just give a mention to Matthew D'Angelo from Troop 315, which I believe is based out of St. Anastasia's, who is
It is.
on this Zoom call, as well as he's getting we're working towards his citizenship in the community badge. So just wanted to
Fantastic. Good for him.
give that out there.
I will say that citizenship is one of the required badges for Eagle Scouts, so that's great.
Hey, John, said the public comments were from Janet Elliott and
Yes.
Patricia Davis.
Yes, I'm confirming that's what I have too. Okay.
And
Mr.
we
Neese?
do have a hand raised, Mr. Chairman.
All right, hang on. Let me go back to that screen. Too many screens here. There is a hand raised.
Yes. If
Oh,
if you,
Mrs. Mehallow, yes. Go ahead, Mr. Neese.
all right.
Go ahead.
Hello.
Cindy.
Yeah,
Hi,
please.
can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Great, thank you. This is Cindy Mehallow, 87 Hunters Run, and I'm speaking about the Greer Park accessibility issue, and I'm speaking in favor of choosing one of the parking options that provides the greatest accessibility for people. There's several reasons for this. One is I have a personal experience with being somewhat indisposed. For 6 months, when I was recovering from a broken ankle, I indeed fell in the category of handicapped, and it gave me a firsthand taste of what it's like to try to get around in a car, with a scooter. I was off my feet. So I heartily endorse the board taking actions that would then there are 5 other reasons, which I will go through very quickly. One is that equal access to infrastructure, including recreation and open space, is a core element of the Equity Through Access project of the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission. And this ETA initiative seeks to improve economic and social opportunity by expanding access to essential services for vulnerable populations, including those who are physically disabled. And they do define essential services as destinations that are needed to meet a standard quality of life, including, among other places, recreation and open spaces. Secondly, providing accessible parking spaces aligns with the Department of Transportation's Ladders of Opportunity initiative. Thirdly, providing equal access for all people can help the municipality avoid legal issues. According to Syracuse University College of Law professor Robin Malloy, disability law is one of the fastest growing areas of concern for local governments, and failure to comply with accessibility issues can be costly and result in years of litigation. Fourth, by providing accessible parking areas, you are considering the needs of nearly 12% of Delaware County residents. According to the National Institute on Disability, Independent Living and Rehabilitation Research, in 2015, Delaware County had 11.8% of its population categorized as disabilities. Finally, it's the law. The ADA Act, which Title II of that act specifically applies to state and local government activities. It prohibits discrimination on the basis of disability in a variety of facets, including public accommodations. And a 6th bonus reason is that I know the township has high hopes for doing a lot of work there, which is going to be costly, and you're going to be looking for grants. It will be much harder to be successful in getting grants if you are not ADA compliant. So there are a lot of benefits to making it accessible. Thank you for your time.
I don't see any other comments. So if there are no other comments on, Mrs. Mahala, you have another comment?
I think it was my fault.
Oh, okay. See no other hands. We've received no other written comments, so we will move on. Next item in the agenda is consider approving minutes from the January 25th, 2021 meeting. I'll entertain a motion or consideration of any changes.
Make a motion to approve the minutes as presented, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Altieri, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap to approve the minutes from our January 25th, 2021 meeting as written. Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Good. All right, moving on. Next on the agenda is item number 9, Greer Park Accessibility Presentation. Mr. Nease, I'm assuming that the Wade or somebody from the committee is going to present this.
I just promoted Wade, and I'm getting ready to pull up the presentation.
Okay.
Okay. Wade, you should be able to speak. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
And the presentation is up, Wade.
Okay. So recently, the DCVA recognized Mike and Joanne, who were the leaders of this project, for our consultants for their work on the park. And what they did is they brought in a Dr. Charles Givler, who is one of the best dam engineers, hydrologists in the nation. He's a national guy. He flew to our little town, to our little pond, to make sure we could have a water feature and satisfy all the requirements of the community. So it was just an amazing piece of work that these two did, and I think they need to be recognized. They put in more hours than anyone should have. They would have been better off working at Wawa, I believe, but I just wanted to recognize them. And the fact that they were recognized by a local environmental organization, DCVA. So why we're here tonight is the committee's requesting concurrence from the Board of Supervisors to proceed with Greer Park Master Plan parking configuration as presented. The project has received some public attention, and our request tonight is in the spirit of transparency to the community. Why now? It's because the master plan is nearly complete and layouts need to be finalized. The consultant's also writing grants for us, and they need these concepts to be part of the grant request. So the committee reviewed a total of 3 parking concepts. There was mixed feelings between them. The 2 leading factors were diminished aesthetics and accessibility. We also discussed traffic safety, illegal parking, and those kinds of things, but that'll all be addressed in the master plan. They plan to put some plantings in, some screenings to keep people from running from a trail into the street or anything, the emergency road, the access road. So everything will be addressed in the master plan. That was a concern there. There was also some concern about the impervious material we're going to add. I actually have those numbers from Joanne that I'll share later. And that's also the paved parking space. So there'll be a minor amount added. It's the road is already going to exist. We'll go over this when we go through the concepts, but the road is going to increase 4 to 8 feet, most likely just 4 feet if we choose C. That's what we're recommending. So it would be a 4-foot increase for concept C. And it also adds a footpath, but that footpath is pervious, so it doesn't hurt us with the ecological factors. And then there'll also be a slight reduction in the width of the pond to accommodate the added footpath in concept C. And I have the costs that are associated with those as well. So the challenge of this park was the environment that it lives in, the topography and the stormwater runoff, the linear shape and the complex hydrology of this facility restricts the location of the playground to the proposed location, which is, you see here, it's in every concept, the playground's located in the same place. So there's limited use, active recreational space available to use. And given that, and where the front parking lot is, and where the front parking lot was proposed in concept B, it's a 500-foot walk from that parking lot to the all-inclusive playground. And that's one of the issues. So this emergency access road is going to be in place regardless of which concept we choose. We need to have access for the police and ambulance to run back there. And Chief Lund has asked us to put a gate on the front of it that he could close at night and keep people from visiting the park when we don't want them there. So that gate is going to be added regardless of the concept that we choose. And this is concept A that we looked at. We didn't consider, but we did look at. It has parking, all of the parking inside the park, close to the trail that wraps around the playground, the pavilion, and everything else. It provides great access, but we thought it just took away from the natural environment, and it also was too intrusive for neighboring residents. Concept B shows the parking lot in the front of the park. So this parking lot is actually just forward of the existing parking lot. The existing parking lot would stay there, and then this parking lot would be added in front of it. And you can see that emergency road becomes the trail. So the difference between concept C, if we look at now, is that emergency road is there, but we need a footpath. We can't have cars and foot traffic on the same road. So we have to have a footpath that would be a pervious material, and the emergency road would not be. So the only difference would be the added parking spots, a little turnaround spot. There's going to be a 4-foot additional width on the emergency road and that footpath. So that reduces the pond somewhat as well. So that's a little bit of a detriment. It also reduces the playground and it increases the cost very slightly. So we can go over there. So this is two handicap spots and one drop-off spot near the playground and pavilion. So handicapped people can get out, go right to the pavilion, take their grandkids, and be able to see them in the playground. So, who are we trying to include? Disabled residents that live in the community. And 15%, I know Cindy said 13% in Delaware County, but it's 15%. I got this off of the state statistics of Pennsylvania residents. I think we're actually a little better than that in Newtown Square. And then, so it's 500 feet too far for some residents. Yes, we think most likely it is. And the financial burden is minimal, and we will go over that. So why do we care about inclusion? Obvious reasons, and then there's laws as well, the ADA, the UCC code from Pennsylvania, and there's actually a playground rules that required as well that Joanne faxed me later or sent to me earlier today. So, but does it violate law? No one I talked to. I've reached out to some advocacy groups. We reached out to DCNR, who funded our project. And there is no specific law that gives you a distance. It just says access. But I think common sense kind of tells you 500 feet is questionable at least. So inclusion requires access for all. Greer Park will become our first truly inclusive park, and access is key to that because a lot of this playground is going to be meant for these children. And the trails and just the pavilion, just the community activity alone is going to attract people with disabilities for sure. Society benefits when children with disabilities have equal access. Children who have equal access have increased success throughout their life. And then we just talk about belonging as basic need. And then there's some pictures of children using some of the equipment. You know, this isn't necessarily what we're getting, but we hope to get something that they can use. And then there's the turnaround spot, and who benefits from that? You know, we've all been to the park or beach, whatever, and it's a lot to carry. So that we're hoping that it's going to be limited to 15 minutes or 20 minutes, whatever it might be, for a drop off for families. We hope to have events there. Bill Potzik is on Parks and Rec. I know that he wants to have kids from the elementary school to do some science classes there, and you know, get involved with the creek. There's going to be 3 access points for the creek, so we're hoping classrooms are going to visit the park as well. So that would help them and the community events, elderly, just, you know, anybody you can think of. And then there's the demand. So Joanne believes that demand is going to really open up for us once people hear about this space. She's cited a number of projects she's worked on where nobody visited the park previously, and now you can't go there and there's not 10, 15 cars in the parking lot. So there is some expected demand. So what we're proposing to do, we're a little concerned about adding too much at one time. So we'd like to just add some provisioning at the end of the parking lot in case demand does grow, we get added easily with minimal cost. And that kind of resolves that issue for us. And then most of the respondents that visit our park only visit it 4 times a year. Joanne feels that, you know, that's saying something to us, that, you know, maybe there's a reason people aren't visiting the park. And like she said, once this opens up, there's going to be a lot more. So in conclusion, we're just asking for concurrence for concept C. The committee met February 1st. We voted by a 7-2 margin to recommend concept C. So that includes the 2 handicap spots, the drop-off spot, and the additional cost, which I can go over. So the open water wetland that we're going to lose, in concept B, it's 0.29 acres. In concept C, it's 0.27 acres. So that's 0.02 acres.
Wait,
Not
can
much.
you give them again? I'm sorry.
So in concept B, it's 0.29 acres. In the concept C, it's 0.27 acres. So concept C is a little smaller, but it's only 0.02 acres that it's smaller. It's not much at all. It's I don't even know what the percentage is. It's, you know, I guess 1% or less. Yeah, it's less than 1%.
It's 871 square feet.
Okay. And the playground, that's a 10% reduction in the playground space. Now, I don't know how much money we're going to have for the playground as it is. I think, you know, if we go full-size playground here, it's a little more than we probably bargained for. But, you know, if we're going to go full scale, we're going to lose 10%. If you're going to throw all the money in the world at this, we're going to lose 10% of that feature. And then
You lose
what's that?
10%. So I'm a little confused. Lose 10% of the playground if we go with B, or if we go
with C.
Okay.
Because that pushes out into that space where the playground is.
Got it.
And then pervious path, it's 302 square feet that we're adding. That's less than 2% of the total pervious paths. As far as that's oh no, that is pervious paths. Impervious access road, it's going to be 1,506 square feet additional. So, and that's 19% increase. But Joanne has proposed some rain gardens to offset any impact to MS4. We can use rain gardens and some other features to offset that. And so the total cost is adding the additional paving is about $20,000. The surface of the playground that we're going to lose is about $15,000 or no, $5,000. So The total increase in cost is about $15,000 to add the handicap parking. And I'm sorry, I just got these figures late. I would have put them in the presentation. I can send them to you guys separately if you like.
Yeah, I'll take them.
Okay.
Yeah, Wade, send the figures to Manager Nease and he will get them out to the board members.
Yes.
Any other board members have any questions on this? Comments? All right, let me go with mine then.
Hold on real quick, John. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, real quick. Wait, so C would be 15,000 more than B, but we don't have the total for what B is yet, do we?
No, she's working those figures up. She just did this on the side for me
Got it.
for tonight's presentation.
Okay. Okay, and just to okay, that's fine. That's all I had.
Okay, I would think that I'll add to that we're going to need those figures before we can render any type of decision. If we even need to render a decision, I guess there's no reason why this can't be a design detail that we prosecute or propose both concepts moving forward and then get down to the other one at some later date. Nonetheless, Wade, the committee is not suggesting that option B is not accessible, correct?
No, not by law. No.
Okay. So there's nothing about B that would prevent it being inclusive and allowing people to get to the park and use the amenities in the playground and things like that, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And the pond for 871 square feet worth, where whatever the water feature that's there would be bigger under concept B than concept C, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Does the committee have any idea on how the parking spots on concept C near a playground would be monitored? I mean, is there an expectation now that our police are going to have to go down there on a regular basis and check to make sure the cars parked there are handicapped cars? And I guess my concern is this drop-off spot's nice and everything, but I guess my fear is the first guy pulls in there in the morning when the gates open and that's the end of that. That spot's now filled all day long. Are we now expected to have our police have to go in there on a regular basis and tow cars out of there? I just thinking out loud, I guess. I mean, one of my fears is if we have 2 handicap spaces there, we need 3 and a handicapped person parks there, doesn't display the ticket, they've been there all day, our cops finally tow the car, then that person comes back and says, where's my car? I mean, I think there's a lot of issues with concept C that need some further refinement, maybe need to be addressed just from a operational standpoint. I mean, especially when we consider that concept B meets all the ADA criteria and is inclusive just as much as option C is too. So, and we're getting a bigger pond with option B than we are with option C. And it's cheaper, option B. And maybe it's not a big cost, maybe it's a marginal cost, but it's still, I think, something that the board needs to weigh. And I guess without those numbers, I'm not sure we can weigh that choice right now. I think we need to see those overall numbers. I'm also a little concerned about the gate opening and closing too. I guess under concept B, the gate could always stay closed as long as our emergency responders and public works people all had access to the gate, or a gate that could be designed that was breakable or removable or whatever, so that in the event of emergency, they could still get down there without having somebody worry about opening and closing every day. I'm afraid that, people are, waiting there at 8 o'clock in the morning and the gate still hasn't been open because we're busy plowing snow or something, or at the end of the day, we lock the gate and forget to check that there's still people in the park. So again, I think there's some operational things with concept C that need to be thought of before we go ahead. And that's just my opinion. But again, I think the board needs to have those full numbers to be able to weigh what we're doing. If in fact we have to make a decision at this point between B and C.
I think Joanne needs this for the grant application. I'm not sure how long she can wait. I will ask her, and when I send the figures to you, I will include that information as well.
Yeah, I think we need to see that. I'd like to see the figures first before we try to make a board decision. I mean, I think, hey, the board's, as per our last in December, we're unanimous that this is the way to go. I think this is going to be an outstanding park. I think you guys have done a great job. And, you know, we're still going to have a water feature, but we're going to have all this other cool stuff around it. And it just looks great, man. This would be awesome. You know, wish we could get it done this year. Obviously, that's not going to happen. But I just, you know, before we go plowing ahead with Concept C, which has some operational issues, I think we need to see the cost and know exactly what we're getting into before, if in fact we have to pick one option over the other. So, so hopefully she still has time for us to submit the grant, because we really need to see those numbers. So I think if you can get back to Steve with those numbers, get back to Steve with the information regarding when the deadline is, then we can at least have another discussion at the board level and decide how we want to go ahead with this.
Okay, understood.
Any other
Thank you.
comments from board members?
No, just in terms, well, not a comment, I guess more or less a question, just so Wade has the guidance. In terms of like those operational questions, Mr. Chairman, is that something that you want him to work out with I'm guessing that's something that the steering committee is going to have to work out with the township manager. I mean, correct? Is that where?
Well, yeah, I mean, if the committee has, hopefully they've thought about these things, and if they have thought about them and discussed them, you know, even if it's just the, you know, acknowledging that here's our note from talking about these things and here's our suggestion, that's fine. I think the manager and the chief need to have and maybe even the fire chief need to have a discussion on this too in greater detail and get back to the board regarding, you know, any operational concerns with Concept C over Concept B. You know, what's their fears? And I mean, I don't want to, we certainly as a board don't want to create anything that is difficult to police or difficult for our fire and emergency services to manage. You know, it's a narrow road. If somebody goes down there and gets stuck and blocks access on the road, what happens then? I mean, I think there's a lot of things that need to be thought of first here again. And if Wade's committee has thought about these things or at least discussed them, the notes of those would be handy, or a summary of those issues and how they thought they would be addressed would be handy. And then I'd love to hear back from our manager when he has a chance to talk to Mr. Lund and our fire chief or fire marshal or whoever, and whatever comments they might have, just like we would with any other planning submission. I mean, I guess you look at this, it's a concept plan, but you know, it's almost like a land development thing. So, you know, we always get comments from our fire marshal on the land development plan. So maybe we should get some comments on our fire marshal and police chief on this particular option B and option C here. Assuming we have that time, which I'm hoping we do.
You'll have the information tomorrow, and we did discuss all of those things. So I'll include those notes as well.
That would be great. That would be great. And Mr. Nease, you can reach out to our fire marshal and police chief and see if they have any formal comments that they want to give us on B and C.
We have been discussing, and I will continue to discuss and formalize that into something for you.
And if the deadline is before our next meeting, I guess we'll have to discuss that, but let's hope it's not, and then we can hash this out at our next meeting if need be.
I will have a conversation with the consultant as to exactly what they have to have when.
Okay, that'd be great if you could get back to us on that. And other than that, great looking plan, man. Love looking at these concept plans. This is nice. I want to bring my grandkids here, man.
Thank you.
Some grandchildren, huh?
And Mr. Nease, we're going to have the concepts up, I believe, on the website. If not tomorrow, then this week, correct? So the public.
Yes, we're going to, the only thing that will potentially keep this from happening is potentially if the snowstorm tomorrow is more than what they're telling me it's going to be, because George is the one who will put these up on the website. So, but we'll get everything together, and hopefully George can do it, and the snow will leave us alone enough that we can get it done. But that's what we're working.
Can I just ask for one last thing, Wade? When you get, because I know you gave us the information through the presentation, but if those, the impervious surface numbers can be included on both plans, as well as any other information that you think would be relevant, specifically all the information minus, the cost will be a different thing that won't be included on the plan. But the other information I think would be helpful so that the board can have it as well.
All right, I'll just add it to the presentation then.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you, Wade.
Comments?
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Wade. And again, thank you and the committee for an excellent job you guys have been doing with this. This is
Thank you. It's a great committee.
I would just make comment, this committee's worked really well together, even though they've not necessarily always agreed. And so that's been, they've really tried to work through this and have good conversation. And from a township standpoint, we're very thankful for the hard work this committee's doing. And I know you've made that comment, but it's also from the staff standpoint, it's been good to have them working on this.
Well, excellent, excellent. Any other board members have any comment on this issue before we move on? Hearing and seeing none, we will move on. Our next item is a report from our Township Engineer, Eileen.
Still working with the contractor on the Clearbrook change orders. The snow kind of damaged our ability to see some of what's going on. Expect to wrap that up this week. And before the meeting tonight, I was able to send a draft of the report for the Tyson Road, or what we're calling Upper St. Albans drainage study. It's basically the narrative and a few supporting documents, as well as the plan showing the survey responses. The one for the heights will follow tomorrow or Wednesday. And we're making progress minimally until we can get the permission to pave again with the road program punch list.
Yeah, I think we all got the, I know I got the email, I'm pretty sure everybody got the email today regarding the Tyson Road drainage. And I don't think anyone's had a chance to look at it yet, but
I didn't expect you to yet. Yeah,
That's good. Appreciate you getting that done, and we'll take a look at that, and then we can talk about that at our next meeting.
There is a lot of background information that was too large to email. So we're gonna have to figure out a way to get that to you all as well.
Okay. Any questions for Eileen?
If it's easier for you to do a hard copy, I mean, I prefer hard copies anyway. So if I can always pick mine up from the township building.
Okay, that sounds good. I'll work on that.
I was thinking that we have a Dropbox account too. I think I know Susanna sent us stuff in Dropbox, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Before.
Mm-hmm.
So we might be able to do that for those of us that don't want to kill trees. Because I love trees.
Yep,
But Eileen, I have to say, Eileen, the format of the survey is very helpful because it shows us that you color coded, and it's so thank you for that. It makes it easier to understand where the issues are.
I'm hopeful that Leonard caught that it's not just color coded.
It's funny because as soon as she said color coded, I got nervous. I'll be honest.
Yeah, no, and it's also patterned.
I haven't had a chance to look at it yet, and I just
Yeah.
had a hot
Yeah,
flash.
there's dots, there's checks, you'll be able to follow it. So
Eileen, you warmed my soul. Thank you for that.
I got that light bulb when the topic came up, and I thought I could not let you down in this one.
Yeah, well, like I said, I haven't seen it yet, but from what I'm hearing, you haven't. So thank you.
Awesome. Any other questions for Eileen? All right, moving on. Report from our Township Manager, Mr. Nease. I got a couple things here.
Yeah, actually, I have a couple there and a couple others that I've added since Friday, just because I can. And so we are working on the next insert for the next run of the In Community magazine. One of the challenges that we're having is that we've been budgeting to slowly put less in the In Community magazine and do our own a couple times a year. And so we are still moving in that direction. When we did that, my planning probably wasn't the best this time around. I think we're going to actually add a couple pages from what we had budgeted. And so probably in April, I'll be coming before you asking to move some money from the position that we're hiring, the communications position, which we haven't filled yet, to help cover a couple of those pages. We want to get the communication out, and we'll be bringing the communication position in, but it probably won't be before the end of February anyhow. So we'll have 2 months worth of savings in that area. But I felt like we talked and we would like to do about 6 pages, even though we only budgeted 3. And so we're going to do that. I can't officially do that yet, but I just want to let you know that's possibly coming. The next thing on my list is I met with PECO. We've actually discussed several different things, but the one thing that we discussed is that there's a bare steel replacement program that's in place, and it's the bare steel from the main to the person's house and into the person's house. So we have people that still have the old bare steel PECO lines. And if you know anything about steel lines and being in the ground, they tend to rust over time, which tends to mean that they leak over time. And so there are 59 that are left in the township. There is a program right now through that's from the PUC that's kind of a mandate for PECO to get those replaced. To our chagrin, some of those lines are on roads that we just paved this last year.
Oh, you're kidding.
I'm not kidding you. One of them is the main one is actually the 2 main ones are state roads, which is very disappointing because the state's got less requirements than we do about that fix. And so Bishop Hollow has several places on it, as well as Newtown Street Road. A lot of them are over like on Barron and in that area. And so we're working through that process. And we're working, George has been getting the information. He may have sent it to me this afternoon. I haven't had a chance to look back, but we were getting the information to do the permits for PECO related to that, and trying to combine some things and how many projects are actually going to mean digging into the road versus being able to do it in the right of way. And I will get that information out to you. And I will also put it out on the website when we put the whole piece up on the website. So we'll be doing that as soon as we get all the information from PECO related to this, and the letters that they're going to be sending out and where they're going to be and the impact. They've told us it would probably take, I believe, 3 to 4 weeks total to get the whole project done. And so it's going to be a relatively fast project. Where they can, they'll go inside the line that's there, and where they can't, they'll have to actually bore for a new line to go in. My understanding, like I said, it's a plastic of some sort that's more durable. So I just wanted everybody to be aware of that. In that same conversation, I talked about the trees. I think I shared with you that there were potentially 5 trees that were going to come down. I haven't gotten the warm fuzzy yet, but I've been told that they're going to be trimmed versus actually coming down. So I want to confirm that before I, make a big deal about it. But there was actually 7 trees that were marked, and that's why I started getting concerned. And so, but I'm being told the ones on Westchester Pike are actually just being trimmed back at this point, not taken down. I told them that was good to hear, because they were indigenous trees that are deciduous, not indigenous, deciduous trees, sorry, that are really been around a long time. They're good sized, really nice trees, and I'd hate to lose them. So that's where we are. I also talked about the trees on Goshen Road and put back and forth a plan. They had come out with just putting some green arborvitae, giant green arborvitae, and I'd asked for some additional plantings as to that. And so they've given me some crab apples and I forget the other names, arrowwood and something else, some things that they're bringing, but there are more evergreen type things to fill in that spot along the Goshen Road where they took those trees out several years ago.
I'm sorry, Steve, you're talking about by the trail?
Yes, I am.
Down
where that spot is, that's so noticeable. It's
Yes.
it's not, by no means is it gonna make the spot unnoticeable as you drive by down on Goshen Road. Where it'll help is when you're walking along the trail.
Mhm.
That's where it's gonna help. You'll feel like at least it's not quite so bad.
Will it also help with the trail not being washed out as much there, or is that not where the spot that?
Yes and no. We still have some work to do there from Public Works side. We're doing some drainage changes there. We have 2 areas along the trail that the drains have collapsed. We were trying to work on a little bit of that last year. It's really hard to do and maintain social distancing and those kind
Right.
of things. And so, but George and I have been talking about trying to figure out how to get it done this summer or this spring for this summer and in that way. So
But there is a plan.
There is a plan, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, we understand with COVID, things are just not easy.
Yes. There's in your packet, there's an invitation for the board as well as for the Park and Rec Committee to attend the Delaware Creek Valley Association meeting in March. So it's March, the first Thursday in March at 7 p.m. So you're aware of that. As you know, we have several businesses in town that we've worked really hard with related to COVID, trying to, help them and just make sure they can continue to still do business. One of those businesses has reached back out to us. We provided them the use of Drexel Lodge Park last year. Not Drexel Lodge. We provided them the use of Brookside Park. They were doing free yoga in the park at Drexel Lodge Park for us, and that's Dalai Lama yoga. And so they would like to continue to use Brookside Park for their program this spring and into the summer, and are committing to, for the township, I believe it's 13 sessions that they will do throughout the summer at Drexel Lodge Park that will be free for anybody to show up and come to. And so would like to do that unless the board has an objection.
Absolutely.
Okay. Finally, I have shared some information with you all related to BPG, related to two things that you had asked for in the past. One of those was related to the layout for the new area, phase 2. There was some question in regards to the how they were handling what they were actually going to put in as they were doing phase 2, and they were going to put in the apartments and the townhomes, and what was happening with the place that would be retail. And so I've shared that information with you in a tentative schedule. As you well know, all of that is obviously dependent upon what happens with COVID, what happens with retailers who want to come in, but that's their projection. So you have that in your packet as well. Or not in your packet, I'm sorry, so I shared that with you last week. It's just an email to you as a board. So I did get that information off to you. The other thing that you had asked me to look at was an answer related to some of the lighting issues over to Mehallow. And they have committed to a certain plan related to the lighting, and we're working on trying to get that fully installed, as well as some plantings. And I know that you've asked some of you have asked for some additional information, and I will get that out to you this week.
Can we add that to, because it's good information. We talked about it in the public session 2 weeks ago. So we can put that on this agenda so people can see the memo that was sent by John Ford or somewhere on the website so people can see it, because they said we discussed it. And I want those residents who are either listening now or who listened 2 weeks ago to be able to see what they came back to us on. I will say this in regards to AmeriHealth, the neighbors that I was hearing from that live, in my neighborhood have said that it has been resolved in terms of the lighting of the building itself. They haven't said anything to me about the parking garage, and I have not had a chance to go over and look at it. So I will say that it does seem that something has finally started to change there.
Yeah. So yeah, I can get that information out.
Mr. Altieri, I'm assuming you mean put that on the website, not as an agenda item, correct?
Well, when I said agenda item, I know normally we can have the hyperlink. So if anybody wanted to look at this under the manager's report. So however George and Steve want to put it up there, it's good information for the residents to see. So I think it's important to put up there.
Oh, agreed.
Yeah, we'll figure out the best way to do it and we'll get it on, maybe both places.
Yeah, and I would also put on there too, because and I apologize if you discuss this, but we also, I know I asked specifically about the time frame for the Route 3 project, the PennDOT project that they're doing.
Yes,
That's on there.
I know we got a memo for that as well, so we can put that on the site, the website as well.
yes, I will. We'll get all of that and I'll try to actually put it in both places.
Mr. Neese,
Chairman, everything else is later down on the agenda that we need to discuss this evening.
anybody have any questions on the board for Mr. Neese?
No, I'm just happy to hear that we have a plan for the Goshen Road Trail because my wife has really been hounding her local elected official on why it's always washed out when she goes for her run. So I can tell her we have a plan there.
You know, the one other thing we talked about on the trail, and Eileen was looking at this, was the one area I think between where these trees are missing from PECO's clear cut and the area where Toll Brothers is above them ends. And Eileen, you were looking into that as far as if we have to berm it or somehow control the water to flow it from coming onto the trail. I know Harry and George and them paved the one area, the hilly area there, Steve. But
Yep.
I think that area was getting a lot of water. And I believe Eileen said that was due to the fact it was coming off of BPG's property, not Toll Brothers at that point. Is that correct, Eileen?
I'd have to get a plan out to make sure we're talking all about the same areas because the dividing line between Toll's impact and BPG's has been rather fluid, no pun intended.
Right. No, and I understand that, but I mean, I know we got the Toll Brothers issues fixed now that their system's turned on by the parking lot. There was a lot of problems over the last few years. You got that fixed.
Yes.
But this is the last area where we need maybe both of them to get involved. But if a lot of water's coming down off that hill, maybe some way they can put a berm or something to divert the water towards the drainage. I don't know if you want to call that a creek, a spring, a pond, whatever you, or not a pond, but a brook, whatever you want to call it, where that water goes into once it goes across the pipe from the trail back towards the BPG property and then flows down, I guess, downstream towards the Crum Creek.
Yes.
So I think we just want to look at that now. And then that would probably solve the majority of those water problems.
I think it could also be done in conjunction with what Harry and George have been doing, replacing the pipes, because they were
Okay.
a pretty bad.
Right, but I believe that's off the trails property. And
Yeah,
if the water's coming flying down the hill, even if we pave it or replace the pipes on our side, where it's coming from the Lister property, I still think we need to divert that water to, I don't know what you call that. You call it a stream, a brook, or whatever
I
kind of
call it
tribute.
a tributary stream. Yeah.
Yeah, so that one on that side where the water goes, once it gets through the pipe on the other side, I think we can divert the water coming down the hill. I think that would help because really we did get the problem fixed when we finally got that stuff turned on at the parking lot. So now the water doesn't come out of the parking lot onto the road anymore, coming from Toll. But there's still, I think, some water that comes across that area. And we want to just make sure we address that this spring.
We have talked, George and I think Eileen was out there the day we talked about potentially on what would be the south side of the trail,
Right.
prior to it coming on the trail, kind of doing a drainage system that would run down. It won't be 100%, but it would definitely help.
Well, no, exactly. And that's what I'm talking about. They're way higher than we are.
Yep.
Even if we put a swale in along the trail or something like that there to
Right.
that water, get it down into the stream rather than over top of the trail.
Yep. That's the plan.
Because we just did that beautiful pavement job. We don't want to have that wash out and have to redo that. That would just be a waste of efforts.
Agreed. Any other questions for Mr. Neese?
I will say our public works team has been doing, I think, a fabulous job with snow removal. And, that last storm that was Monday, a week ago, that was actually Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, that was a long duration storm. And I think our team just did a fabulous job of staying with it and being safe through the process. And I'm very thankful for that.
I would agree with that. The roads look very good. No complaints that I've heard. And so that they are doing a great job keeping them open. And hopefully everybody is being safe and doing what they got to do. So. All right. No other questions for Mr. Nease. We are going to move ahead. Next on the agenda is payments. We have two items. The first is consider approving the $1,194.50 escrow release payment to Joseph Cahill at 17 Northwood Road for a completed grading project.
No move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Russo to approve item 11.1. Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next is considering the approval of a $55.50 refund to Nelson Building Services for an overpayment associated with a roofing permit at 119 Main Street. Anybody want to offer a motion?
No move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap to approve item 11.2. Any further questions or discussions on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next, we have the bills. We're going to take them separately since the first check register involves 2020 invoices and the second one involves 2021 invoices. So item 12.1, consider approving bills on check register A, the 2020 invoices dated February 8th, 2021 in the amount of $108,047.67. I had the opportunity to review those bills before the meeting, and that is my motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion was seconded by Supervisor Partridge. Any further questions on the bills? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving item 12.1, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next is item 12.2, which is considering approving the bills on check register B 2021 for invoices dated February 28th, 2021 in the amount of $99,768.14. I did have the chance before the meeting to review those bills, and that is my motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion was seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap. Any questions on the motion? All those in favor of approving item 12.2, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We'll move to new business. Item 13.1, consider authorizing the Township Manager to sign the low volume road grant contract. Mr. Nease, perhaps a little explanation.
So if you'll remember, when we started talking about stormwater issues, we had 3 areas in town that we were initially focusing on. We talked about the Heights. We talked about I always get it wrong. Is it Upper St. Albans, I think is how we say it, or the area that's Tyson Road.
Yes.
And then we had talked about Glendale, which is up over near Aronimink Golf Course. There's a very small, low-use road. It's a neighborhood road. And we had a lot of flooding issues up in that area, or at least a lot of stormwater issues up in that area. And we met with the folks from the Low Volume Road Program, and they've actually given us a grant. I believe it's a little over $60,000 to help address the stormwater up in that area. And so we have everything approved, ready to go. All I need to do is sign the contract and we get the work started. Obviously Eileen will work on getting that process bid out and do the work that needs to be done. But it will help address an issue that we've been having for a very long time with stormwater that washes out and actually runs into people's garages and into their houses.
We don't have to subsidize any of that grant, Steve.
I don't think so. I think almost all of this is paid totally by the grant. Eileen, am I wrong on that?
The only thing they don't fund, unfortunately, is the engineering.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll make a motion to approve that.
Is there a second?
Second.
This is made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap to authorize the Township Manager to sign the low volume road grant contract. We love that money. Any further questions from
Great.
members of the board on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Fantastic. Next on the agenda is considering the appointment of Paul San Francisco to the zoning hearing board to fill the unexpired term expiring 12/31/2024. Is there a motion?
I'll make the
So-
motion.
Go ahead, Lynn.
I'll make the motion. Sorry. Brain freeze.
And Mr. Partridge, you'll second that?
Sure, I'll second that.
Okay, great. Motion is made by Supervisor Altieri, seconded by Supervisor Partridge to approve the appointment of Paul San Francisco to the zoning hearing board, filling the unexpired term extending 12/31/2024. Any further questions or discussions on the motion?
No, Mr. Chairman, just a comment that he's one of the 3 alternates, and essentially what we're doing is just bumping him up.
Yes. If there's no further comments, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next on the agenda is consider accepting the resignation of Jason DeCecco from the Environmental Advisory Commission. He has sent a letter, and I need a motion.
I will make that, I will make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Altieri, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap to accept the resignation of Jason DeCecco from the Environmental Advisory Commission. Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next on the agenda is considering approving the advertising of the open position on the Environmental Advisory Commission that would expire 12/21/2022.
So moved.
Your second.
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Altieri to advertise the open position on the EAC for the term that would expire 12/21/2022. Any further questions or discussions on the motion?
No, I did fail to say this, that Jason works for Johnson & Johnson, as we know from that letter, but just so the public knows, works for Johnson & Johnson. Johnson & Johnson just got assigned to a new almost billion-dollar project. And with COVID, everybody working from home and it being global, he's basically working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week now. So it's unfortunate, but he's working on some amazing stuff over there, quite frankly.
So he's letting his full-time job get in the way of his volunteer service to the township.
How rude, I know.
I'll say. Well, we are very sorry to lose him because I think he was an asset, but hey, you got to feed your family and we all understand that, I think so. Thank you, Mr. Altieri. Did we? Yes, we did approve that. Okay, so.
We got to vote. We got to vote, John.
So all those in favor of approving the advertising open position, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you for keeping me on the straight and narrow, Mr. Partridge. Item 13.5, consider approving policy 2021-01, replacing policy 2016-7 regarding invoice payments prior to board approval. This is so the payment can be made to district and county courts who will no longer accept credit card payments. I know the policy was attached. Mr. Nease, any explanation?
So we have to make payment to the court when we file against anyone for any issue. If there's non-payment or if there is something related to a zoning or a codes issue, and we have to go do that. So when we do that, in the past, we've been able to do that by credit card, and that's how we've handled it. And then we've gone through the normal payment process.
Right.
The way our system is set, you have to approve the payments ahead of time. And we had set up a handful of payments that you agreed that we could pay on your behalf out of cycle of being before the board, and then you would ratify those payments at the next board meeting. And the reason for that, with things like PECO bills and things like that, we were getting late charges because PECO bill would invariably come in the day after you met, and then they would want payment before we could get it processed and through. And so this way it kept us from getting late charges, and Verizon was the same way, and Aqua and all of those fun ones. So we did that. But the county court situation is a little different in that we don't always know when we're going to go take somebody to court or when we're going to file until, just about the day before, the day, 2 days before. And invariably, you're not meeting again for another week or so. We could wait, but it slows the process down. This would allow us to keep the process moving forward. It's usually about $110 or $120 at most for us to do our filings. I believe the limit is up to $2,000 a year. And so that's where that is. And so that's what's before you.
So move for approval.
Is there a
Second.
second? Motion
Second.
made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Russo to approve policy 2021-01, which will replace policy 2016-7. Any further questions for Mr. Nease? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next, we have discussion about the paper street policy and considering possible approval of this policy. Mr. Nease?
So you had requested as a board that we put a policy together
Right.
for taking paper streets or potentially taking paper streets. And so that's what this policy is. It's been sent out to you. I apologize. I think we didn't attach it. We will get it attached to the board agenda. The policy basically lays out the process. It's very similar to the traffic calming policy in that there are two major changes that we made at the board's direction. One of those major changes was that instead of the if we go through, as we go through the process, we actually have two times in which the residents need to hit that 70% mark before we move forward. And the first time is before the township expends significant amount of money designing the road. And so if to make sure the road is brought up to standards, there's a cost into that. So the engineer will do an initial review and we'll come up with what they propose the cost to be. And then we would go back to the people who are impacted and let them know what we anticipate the actual cost would be before we go into full engineering. And then we would go into full engineering. We would get the total actual cost at that point, get what we think it would take to do the project and bring all of that together. And then we would go back and again ask for a 70% response rate because the big issue on this one is that it does impact all of the residents because there is a potential cost to the residents who are choosing to do this. And so we wanted to make sure that we got the buy-in ahead of time with this and make sure everybody understood. So there's three components that's being looked at in the process. One is the widening or the bringing the road up to standards. And then the second is looking at anything related to stormwater and that would have to be addressed. And with that stormwater also would be whether or not curbing would have to be addressed as part of that. And so all of that would be evaluated and brought before the residents that are interested in the potential of us looking at their road. And then again, we would be looking for a 70% commitment from them. And then it would come before the board again for review, and the board would make a decision as to whether or not that it wanted to proceed, as well as whether it was how much the board would be contributing to the project out of the general fund or the capital fund if there were some parts of the project that potentially were beyond just what was the road itself. You know, when you do stormwater, some of that is actually going to potentially be picking up more than just what's on that road. And so we would, there might be a potential for some more part of that project that would be township cost, and then looking at how that would be handled. So those are the big differences between that one and the traffic calming policy. It still starts out with the residents who are interested getting 50%, kind of, this is the make sure it's at least 50% interest before we ever start, and then going in that direction.
Steve, you have a policy already prepared, right?
Yes, and that's been sent out.
It has been?
Yes.
Okay, I did.
He's
When did that-
shared that with us before. I guess the question would be, Steve, this is a policy, so we don't have to advertise this. It's not like an ordinance or anything like that, correct?
It's not an ordinance, it's just a policy.
So the question is, what's the board's pleasure? I guess we could put it on the next agenda if this is something we want to consider, or if we, and at least get it out there, Steve can attach it to the thing. We can discuss the finer points. It'll give us a chance to all look at what's been developed at this point. What is the board's pleasure with this?
Well, I just have, yeah, Joe. I mean, go ahead.
Yeah, mine's just quick. I just like to be able to appreciate the time to review it, and come back next meeting with a discussion whether we want to move forward with it or not. Go ahead, Lynn.
I think we're going to move forward with it. I think it just depends on when we want to vote on it, right? Isn't that what the question is?
Yeah, I agree there. I'm not suggesting we're going to vote on it tonight. I think we need to have it there that we can all have a chance to review it if we haven't yet, and have it on the agenda with a link so everybody can see what's going on there. So
That'd be perfect.
Makes sense. Steve, just I guess a few questions. I don't think I saw it in the policy, but if there is a difference between the township accepting a road for dedication and then a road that necessarily would be eligible for liquid fuels money, the question that I have is, would the township, there's nothing in this policy that would supersede the township from stopping that process from moving forward, that process being the road dedication, before it comes to the Board of Supervisors to have that discussion, is there? So put another way.
Yeah, can you say it one more time so I can make sure I follow it right?
So put another way, right? So you need 50% buy-in or 20% buy-in to start the inquiry for the informal meeting to happen between the residents and the township, right?
Yeah.
There are some roads that are dead ends, roads that don't have a cul-de-sac, that are not eligible for liquid fuels money. However, they are roads that maybe the residents want to have dedicated to the township. The township legally can still accept dedication of the road. We just wouldn't receive liquid fuels money for that portion of the road.
Correct.
So the question that I'm asking, and I apologize if it's not so clean, the question I'm asking is, just because a section of a road might not get liquid fuels money, the township would not stop the process from moving forward for potential dedication, because that would be a board decision, correct?
When any of this is actually, there's 3 times that this comes back before the board. It is before the board right before we go to the 70% the first time. It's before the board during the 70% the second time, or I think at that same location. And then because it's taking the engineer to do something with this project, there's an expenditure that typically we won't have budgeted for. So before the project ever even gets started, when the engineer starts her review, I say her because Eileen is the one who's doing that. Before the engineer starts the review, that would have to be before you as well. So there's actually 3 points in which this comes before the board. Now, I will say the way this policy is written, it says it has to cut, the roads have to be brought up to township standards, and township standards are that they have to meet PennDOT standards. And so if it's not going to be able to do that, then it's going to have to come before the board, and the board would have to make the decision ahead of time to even begin to start the process.
Right.
So that's how the policy is written.
So let me ask you this way.
Good point, Lynn.
Standards, does PennDOT standards, again, I'm not a traffic engineer, but to me, PennDOT standards is the width and the construction of it, it doesn't necessarily mean what's eligible or not eligible for liquid fuels money. Am I incorrect on that?
There's two pieces to PennDOT standards in that, yes, there's the actual construction of the road, but there's also how the road has to be laid out and for it to meet PennDOT standards. And if it meets both of those, then I believe it also meets liquid fuels.
So there is a potential that a street that is a dead end that doesn't have a cul-de-sac would not be eligible for liquid fuels, and as such would not, as such would not qualify under a PennDOT standard, which wouldn't be a township standard, right?
Correct.
But there's an avenue for us to look at that before the administration themselves would squash that from moving forward.
We would tell the group that it doesn't. If they still want to go forward, they would bring it before we would bring it before the board, because I can't authorize engineering that's outside of our budget without coming back before you. And so we're going to have to bring any of these back before you through the process. But even for Eileen to first go do, she's going to say, there's no way this is going to work. We'll tell them that, but we'll still bring it back to you for whatever it would cost her to do the initial design.
Okay.
Len, the short answer to your question is a board decision. So the whether we decide to accept the road for dedication really shouldn't matter whether or not it's eligible for liquid fuels funding. It's just the decision the board's got to make, knowing that if they bring this road into the total mileage, it won't allow us to get more liquid fuels funding.
Yeah, no, and I understand that completely. What I'm trying to flesh out, which Steve sort of touched on, is I wanted to make sure that we understand that, and I understand that it's a board decision. I do not want the township to have the position, or the administration have the position of, hey, it's not eligible. You don't even come before the board and waste your time, because they're not going to approve it. It is a board decision. And I know Steve would never say something like that. I just don't want them to be put off thinking that we're never going to accept it when there is a potential that we might accept it.
Well, first of all, I don't want to make that decision. I want you to make that decision.
Yeah.
But
So
it's a
I will
good,
make sure it comes back before you.
yeah, Len, that's a good point. I mean, I think it's been good discussion. I'm glad you brought that
I don't
up.
think that it's written that way either. So, and if there is confusion, then maybe we can clean up that language so that it's clear that whether or not the road qualifies for liquid fuels funding has nothing to do with the board's ability to whether they want to even start this process or not. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
I'll look at that again before I send it back out.
Yep.
okay, thank you.
Good.
All right, so you're going to add that to next month's agenda then?
Yes, we'll put it on.
Next meeting, yeah. Okay, thank you. All right, any other questions on item 13.6? Seeing none, item 13.7, consider accepting the zoning ordinance contract amendment as presented by the county. We are going to table this item. The amendment that the county has presented to the township is not signed or executed by the county. So we're asking Mr. Nease to go back and get an executed contract amendment from the county before we're even going to take it under advisement. So any
Yep.
questions on that?
Nope.
Super. All right, moving on to old business. First item under old business, discussion about the Newtown Square Petticoat League Buy a Brick fundraiser.
Sure.
Just real quick, Mr. Nease can fill in the blanks, but I think we've all seen the order form. That's the 50th anniversary of the Petticoat League. They've got two options for the brick, a 4 by 8 inch brick and an 8 by 8 inch brick, whether it's $100 to $200. So that's the question. Do we want to spend $100 to $200 and put a brick, have some printing on it that they can put on their patio there at the field?
John, I'd like to make a proposal that we go with the 8 by 8 for $200. So I would put that motion on the table if anybody would second.
Second,
Motion was made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap to approve the purchase of a brick, of an 8 inch by 8 inch brick in the amount of $200 for the Newtown Square Petticoat League. Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next is 15, This is considering approving resolution 2021-07, the tax collector's compensation. Anybody care to read that resolution and make a motion accordingly?
I have it here if no one else does.
Go for it, Ed.
Okay, resolution number 2021-07, compensation of the township tax collector as set by the Board of Supervisors of the Township of Newtown in the County of Delaware, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Whereas statute 72 PS 5511.35 sets forth that the tax collector in townships of the second class should receive compensation as fixed by the respective taxing authority, that is the Board of Supervisors of Newtown Township. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors at its regularly scheduled public meeting on February 8, 2021, set the annual compensation of the township tax collector at the following rate. Effective January 1st, 2022, $16,480. Effective January 1st, 2023, $16,974. Effective January 1st, 2024, $17,484. Effective January 2nd, 2025, $18,008. To be paid in the same manner as other township employees unless otherwise authorized by the Board of Supervisors. The tax certification fee will be set at $30 per certification. The duplicate bills fee will be set at $5. Resolved this 8th day of February 2021 by the Board of Supervisors of the Township of Newtown, and that's my motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion is made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Russo to approve resolution 2021 setting the tax collector's compensation. Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. That brings us to additional business where we have nothing listed. Board comment. Would any board members like to offer a comment?
Yeah, John, I would. I'd like to thank the board and the administration for the nice arrangement that they had sent me for my loss recently. Thank you. Appreciate it.
More than welcome, Ed. You're in our prayers and hopefully your family's doing well.
Thanks.
Any other board comment? Excellent. Now we have public comment. This is for any members of the general public that would like to comment, offer comments on any item that is not on the agenda. If you'd like to, please raise your hand and be acknowledged. Okay. Seeing no hands raised, we will then adjourn. Our next meeting is Monday, February 22nd. Please be safe. It looks like there's more snow coming on Thursday. And folks, have a great couple of weeks and see you in a little bit. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye now.